Hello, today my team and I will be presenting our final project for the software engineering class. The topic is selecting and justifying a software process model. And my team is Mesli Celeste, Marlon Corona, Miguel Andres, Luis Ángel, and me, Priscila Nieto. And our problem statement is for SETIs, which is called Be Calm. And this is, we found out that students need a safe way to communicate to the institution and have it be transparent. And this way they can report complaints about the ethics rules, the classroom issues, the teacher complaints, abuse, or any other institutional concerns, because we see that mainly students don't feel like they're being heard or they have enough visibility. And this way we can make it happen. So the Purpose app, which is Be Calm, addresses this problem by allowing students to submit anonymous reports, classify cases by the keywords and priority, track the progress, and for each report, they receive notifications during each stage and the resolution process. This way, we can make students feel like they have the visibility, that their case is being worked on, that they know what they're doing with their case, and the institution or the employees don't have more of a workload since most of the system is doing the work for them with classifying the cases and the keywords. And really, all they have to do is update the case, which is really easy. And now our proposed solution is reporting and a follow-up program designed for the students and the administrators. So it's two sides. The students can create the anonymous complaints, add the evidence, make the keywords, and then they receive the updates as their case moves through the different phases. So the system would include multiple main features for the student and the institution that's going to be organizing all of these cases. So first, it has to be anonymous. This way, the students feel like they can make the report safely. Also, the suggestion box with the keywords, this helps so that the students have a specific area they can focus on, and also the system automatically will tell the organization employees what case they will be working on and what type of case they need to put as like a priority. And then, just like I said, the priority levels, such as like a teacher complaint, a classroom issue, situation, or abuse, all of them are important, but we give them a priority so they can be resolved first. And then the case timeline, which is exactly the phases that we want the students to see and understand that their project or that their case is being worked on, and that it's not just some people talking back and forth and nothing is happening. So the phases that we selected are received, the revision, in progress, resolution, or disregarded. All of these would have notifications. And then the automatic assignment, this is for the administrators, and they send the case to the correct person or department, mainly both based on the keywords that the student selected. But they would also have to do a revision to make sure that the keywords selected are correct and that they will go to the correct person. And notification and emails, this is for the student for the status. The resolution transparency, making sure that the student knows and understands why their case was taken a certain direction and why a resolution was taken in the first place. Then the satisfaction rating, this is done by the student for the administrators, so they can rate the resolution using a happy, serious, or a sad face. Very simple. And then finally, the second review option, which is for the students being able to kind of dispute what the first case resolution was, saying that they're not satisfied with the outcome and they want a high priority case. So now, moving on to the stakeholders and the user types. So the stakeholders would be four, which is the students, that they are the main users of the app because they are the reason why the app is done, and the ones that bring the traffic into the app because they submit the reports, they ask for their cases, they have updates, and all of the information is based from them. Then the administrators, they are responsible to take care of those reports and assigning them correctly and giving the update, and also make sure that all the cases are being handled correctly and that they're not just going by the area and not actually being resolved. And then we have the assigned staff or the department representatives, which they are the people responsible to actually looking into the cases. And depending on the type of report, they will have a resolution. And then finally, CETIS, which is the institution that benefits from having a more organized model and a system that helps students take the complaint, because sometimes having an area like SEDE is not helpful enough for the students. And now we have the user types. Mainly the reporter and the student, they have an institutional and verified account who can submit the reports, and they can add all of the information about the reports, like the evidence, the keywords, and then they will be able to have that timeline depending on the phase that their case is being worked on. And finally, the notifications and the resolution. Then we have the administrator, that this is the user that gets the reports from the students. They review the priority depending on what type of case it is. They assign them to the correct person based on the keywords and the review that they just made, and they update it, meaning they take the report from a certain category to another one, and it manages the unresolved or the escalated cases depending if the student asks for a revision. And the case manager, this is the person that is assigned by the administrator to handle the report. And this is the user that works on the case, that tells then the administrator, okay, we can move on to this phase, make sure to update the case, and contributes to the final resolution. And finally, the system. This is the platform itself that classifies the reports using the keywords. The notifications are being sent. They can see the timeline. They have buttons for the review, buttons to add another case, to see all of their cases, and so on. So now the product vision board, this was made in Notion. So the vision for our system is to create a transparent, secure, and anonymous reporting platform that helps students to report the concerns that they have in their institution. And this is done with the confidence of each phase of the case being analyzed and updated by the administrators. Then we have the target group, which is the students, the administrators, the staff, and the members. And then we have the needs. So the students, as I said, need the report to be taken seriously and be organized by the administration depending on the keywords and the area that they need to be analyzed in. Then the product, which is a web mobile platform for anonymous reporting, case tracking, notifications, and resolution management. And finally, the business goals, which is improves students' trust, institutional transparency, which is really important for the institution and the employees, the accountability, and the response efficiency while strengthening campus well-being. This is the most important for us because it helps students feel more secure during their classes and in their institution, and it also helps the institution to have a better management of their students and their cases in their own campus. So now moving on to the impact map. It's a little bit big. I will specify it. So the business goal is the transparency and the effectiveness of the management of the student complaints in CETIS. And the personas are four, which is student, the admin, the staff, and CETIS. So first with the student, the impact is divided in three, which is feels safe reporting issues, trusts the complaint process, and receives update and feedback. So the deliverables for each of these areas are the following. First, to feel safe reporting the issues, the deliverable has to be an anonymous complaint submission. Then, for the trust complaint process, the deliverable will have to be a case timeline. And for receiving updates and feedback, the deliverable will have to be the notifications and the emails. And for these deliverables, the user stories will be submit complaint, the case management, and the track progress. So now for the admin, the impacts will be the management of complaints efficiently, which the deliverable would be the dashboard for the case management, and the user story would be the case management. And for the impact would be assign cases correctly. So the deliverable for this would be the automatic or manual assignment. This automatic would be with the keywords, but they would always have to analyze and go through the cases to make sure that it is being done correctly. And it is the same as the other one for the user story, the case management one, because it focuses on how they're going to deliver it to the staff. So now for the staff, the impact is one mainly, which is resolves the cases effectively, and the deliverable will be the resolution update system, which whenever they're working on a certain phase of the case, they would have to update it, let the system know, let the administrator know, and then they would let the students know. And for the user story will be the resolution. And finally, for cities, the impact would be the increase of student satisfaction. So the deliverable will have to be the satisfaction survey that I mentioned beforehand. And the user story will be analytics and improvement, which is all of the user stories that cities will be focusing on because they mainly have to serve to the audience that they're working with. And the other impact would be the text recurring issues faster. So the deliverable for this would be a second review mechanism, which is again for the students to review their case again and have them go through the process again of the review. So now the user story map, it is divided in 5 sections. So the first one, the first step would be to submit a report. And the steps would be create the report, add evidence, and set priority. And the details would be like the login, have it be anonymous, have a description of the case, and upload images, which is also kind of just the evidence. And the release would be a second review. And then for the managed case, the steps would be classify report, assign the case, and review the report. And some of the description would be the keywords and the department that it needs to be assigned the case. And then it will be an analytics dashboard, what would be like the deliverable. And then the track progress, the steps would be view status, notifications, and view actions. And some of the descriptions are basically the same because that is what the student is going to be seeing in their system. So the status, the notifications, the actions, and the result will be the notifications in the app or in by email. And then the resolve case, the steps would be resolve complaint, update timeline, and the close case. So the description would be the investigation of the case, what area is being worked on, the resolution. So after they worked it with the staff or the employees from said area, what is the final decision on the case and just the cases in general. And this will be done by the custom keywords. And finally, the feedback, which is the evaluate resolution, the second review, and the analytics. So most of the description will be the rating, the appeal, the analytics, and review. And the last like view would be the trend reports. And that would be all from my part. Now my other teammates will focus on the second half of the project. Thank you.
Hi. We're now moving on onto the later half of the project. My classmate Luigi and I worked on this part mostly. So after evaluating the user story map, We went on to create the value and effort assignment. Then we checked out the Moscow prioritization, the release plan, the dependency table, the readiness table for the first sprint, and then our classmate Marlon helped us out with the short reflection, but we did all work on it as a group. So if you like, Luigi, you can start us off with the value and effort assignment.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so first, well, we have already discussed about the user stories previously. So I'm going to enumerate them and tell you how we decided the value and effort. We have a create report and add evidence. Well, here's a slight mistake. It's actually 2.5, but well, it doesn't really matter that much. So we put 100 because the main core of the app basically deals with this, but the effort is 40, as we believe that with the right tools, it's not going to take us the hardest effort, but we really need to uh, plan and act well for putting these functions. Then we have set priority, which is of noticeable value 20, but it's easy to implement, so our effort value effort radio is only 2. Then we have classify report, assign case, and review report, which are also almost a main core of the application. That's why they're 40. And their implementation, it requires lots of details, but it's not the hardest part. So the effort is only 20, and the VE radio is about 2. Then we have review report, the same case. It's not that hard either. A view status, it's important, but super easy to implement. So value for radio 4. And we may see also that the remaining stories also have different radios. Notifications, it has a radio of 2 because both the value and effort are too low. View actions, it's important. So the radio is 2.5 because also the work that we need to put behind it, it's important. Not the most difficult one, but it's crucial. Resolve complaints, value for radio 2. Update timeline 2.5 because it's also part of the main core of the app. And close case is the value for radio is 4 because it's important, but it's really easy to implement. So now we're going to go with the Moscow prioritization ones. So the must-have features, the one that are going to be on the first release, are create report, add evidence, assign case, review report, and view actions. Because without these features, the app would never work. Because that's what the main problem of the application is trying to solve. Then we have the ones on the should have tier list, which are set priority, classify report, view status, and resolve complaints. They are should have because they are not essential. The app may work without them, but they really help the users navigate and understand their claims and their situations. Finally, we have notifications, which are I could have because we want the app to have notifications, but it's really just something to make the navigation easier, and it's not a core of the application. So now we're going with our release plan and MVP. Release 1, the MVP, contains all the stories on the must-have tier list. Release 2 is about improvement and expansion, the ones of the should-have tier list. And finally, release 3 is about notifications. First, we want the end-to-end functionality. Next, we want the better using experience. And finally, we want the app to become ubiquitous with the use of notifications. Now, my teammate Andres is going to proceed with the remaining tables.
Thank you, Luigi. So now moving on to the dependency tables, we took a moment to look around at each of the features we wanted to add and what kind of dependency would be important for it. So first of all, a submit complaint. It's going to eventually depend on the user account, making sure that it is has been verified. It's more of a technical kind of dependency, and the risk that could happen is creating fraudulent or spam or non-institutional reports, and it could flood the system and make just a headache for us. The action is simple, just a simple two-factor authorization or single sign-on using the SETIs domain. Another one that we realized is going to become very important is the add evidence part, specifically just the images, um, bec- and well, all kinds of evidence, text as well. But we need to have a secure cloud storage for all of that and architecture for the file scanning. Um, the risk could be any sort of exploitation, crashes from massive files or security vulnerabilities. And the simple proposed action is to implement file type restrictions, strict file size caps, and a virus scan. Next up, we have for the case for the timeline for you to be able to track the progress. This one is more dependent on the status update system or the implementations with the administrator dashboard. The possible risk of this would be the user timeline remains static or blank, and it becomes less transparent, which is what we're trying to fix here, the transparency issue with any sort of issue coming up from the student body. And for the proposed action, we have to design some sort of centralized state machine database where the admin or case manager can automatically update the case status in real time. Next up, the case assignment. This could bring problems such as complaints being routed to the wrong sort of people who can fix it, delayed resolution times, and excessive manual overhead for the administrators. For this case, we wanted to maybe try some kind of robust initial set of institutional keywords and departments to have each problem be delegated to a certain type of problem. So of course we can have the more maintenance tag compared to a more social tag or more problems with the professors and such. And that's our idea for it. And for more edge cases, we haven't figured something out yet, but it can be manually um, detected. Sorry, not manually detected, manually assigned. Next up, we have the second review mechanism. In this, it's going to depend on the status of each case, specifically once it's closed, and the satisfaction rating from the student once it's received the closed status for it, that everything's being finished. The risk, if not resolved here, is more along the side of high priority cases or instances of abuse. If they're left unresolved or it was flawed, it can damage the credibility of not just the application, but also the whole institution. So we want to have a conditional window after the closure of the case where there's an escalation to a higher tier administration to review what happened in case the student was not happy um with the resolution. And finally, we wanted to have a more analytics dashboard and reports of trends. And this, of course, is more data-driven, and it is dependent on the database to be completely used, result of complaints and keywords. And in this way, the issue it could create by not having it is just not being able to proactively detect recurring systemic problems or patterns, which is very important because prevention is much easier than fixing a problem. We want to prevent the problem before it happens, and that's ideally what the app is eventually used for. Next up, we're going to move over to the Sprint 1 readiness table based off of our user stories. Um, So we have a lot of things that already, one's in specific that is prepared, but we can make I'm going to explain them more. and a few that are not ready. So first of all, let's go with the ones that are ready. So create report, assign case, review report, view actions, update timeline, and close case. All these are must-haves that we need to have at least the basic building blocks for us to be able to work on the rest of our app. All these are just main functionalities that we need. Now, the exception here is add evidence. Add evidence is also one of our must-haves and one of the more important ones. But as we mentioned earlier, we do need to set up a more proper infrastructure for the images and everything having to do with files being uploaded. Right now, we can just have as a simple patch where it is just for text only, just to make sure that the functionality is working. But we would need to work further on to make it move from prepare to ready. Now, moving up to the not ready in our readiness table, we're going to go over the classify report, set priority, view status, resolve complaints, and notifications. All these are should have, with the exception being um, notifications as I could have. Um, so we are putting these to the side for our first sprint because they are dependent on certain things about the first release. Um, And more importantly, they are not necessary for us to have the building blocks. We're going to need them eventually as something we want to add to make the app become fully functional. However, they are not essential for what we need right away. Now, as part of all of this, we're going to move to our short reflection. These were 5 different questions were asked of us to think about after we were done with the project. I'm gonna talk about first with the first question, which is what changed from your original requirements after building the user story map. Um, Originally, we had a very simplified user story map as we had worked throughout the class, and then we realized that many features were important and that we hadn't fully considered, such as notifications, priority levels, and just simple like classifications. And this helped us to eventually complete the vision of the app of VCOM from what it should actually be developed first. And we realized that the first version should focus on the complaint lifecycle of creating the report, adding your evidence, and closing the case. Everything else, analytics, notifications, priority, and more things like that. We are going to move them to later releases because first we want to have the main core to be functional and working. Next up were which user stories were difficult to prioritize and why. Well, the most difficult user stories to prioritize were set priority, classify report, and view status, resolve complaints, and notifications. They are all valuable, and they are very much needed for a more complete release because we want to be transparent. That's part of the whole vision behind the project. We want transparency between CETIS University and what the students are dealing with and whoever may be dealing with this. Um, and they're very important for the user experience. However, they're not essential for the first version of the product. Classification and priority levels, they help us with the complaints, but the MVP can still work if administrators handle the first cases manually. Then notifications were also difficult to prioritize because they're useful for keeping students informed, but they add technical complexity and are not necessary. They're not necessary for the first functional release.
Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the remaining questions. 3. What was the most important dependency your team identified? Well, actually, the connection between the anonymous complete submission and institutional verified student account login was the most important one, as it's critical because the system must ensure that only real students can submit reports and also protect the anonymous part of them. Because if this dependency is not solved correctly, then the platform may be susceptible to spam, fraudulent reports, non-institutional complaints, and a lack of transparency and trust into the system. At the same time, if the reports are not well separated with the identities, the students will not be feeling safe when using this application. Number 4, which stories are essential for the MVP? Well, create report, add evidence, assign case, review report, view actions of the timeline, and use case are the ones of the higher relevance, as they create the basic end-to-end flow of the application. And these stories allow the user to complain, create the evidence, and help administrators be able to review the report, assign it, update timeline, and show the actions that have been taken before closing the case. Number 5, what did the team learn about transforming requirements into user-centric planning? Well, we learned that transforming requirements means focusing on the user journey instead of only listing the features of the application. Also, that user story map helps us understand what students and administrators really need to accomplish step by step when using the application. It showed us that not every useful feature should be part of the first sprint, because when we use value, effort, muscle prioritization, dependencies, and sprint readiness, we may identify which stories are of immediate value and urgency and which ones should be either made across other sprints or be postponed. Overall, we learned that user-centered planning helps reduce scope creep, define a better MVP, and make better decisions on the real user needs rather than only the technical possibilities and understanding of the application we're developing.
All right. Well, that would be all for our part. Thank you, Priscilla, and thank you, Methley and Marlon, who couldn't be the later two who couldn't be here, but they helped us fully develop this project. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Goodbye. Have a nice
Goodbye.
day.